Years had passed since the day Prince Kale chose Lily as his protector, and the Varelian Empire had changed in quiet but deep ways. The once silent corridors of the palace now echoed with soft laughter and the rustle of growing vines that Lily had encouraged to climb the walls. She still wore her dream silk robes, though they were often stained with soil or pollen, and her hands remained calloused from tending gardens that now bloomed with both Varelian and earth plants. Kale, no longer a floating orb of light but a slender youth with silver skin and eyes like twin stars, walked beside her every morning asking questions about roots, rain, and why some flowers closed at night. Lily answered as best she could, not with grand theories but with simple truths. "They rest," she'd say, "just like you." And Kyle would nod, satisfied, as if the whole universe made sense in that moment. But peace, even in an empire of light and song, is never permanent. Rumors began to drift in from the outer colonies, whispers of unrest, of factions gathering in the shadowed rings of dead moons, speaking against the Queen's rule. They called her too gentle, too influenced by outsiders. They pointed to Lily as proof that Varelia was losing its strength, becoming soft like the humans from the blue-green world far across the void. Queen Zyra ignored the rumors at first. She trusted her people, her laws, and the bond between her son and his protector. But when 3 royal scouts vanished near the ash wastes, a barren region once rich in star ore but now cursed by old wars, she could no longer pretend the threat was imaginary. She summoned Lily to the throne room one evening, just as the twin suns dipped below the horizon and the sky turned violet. "I need you to go with Kale," the Queen said, her voice low. "Not as his protector, but as his guide." Lily frowned. "Where?" "To the ash wastes," Zyra replied. The scouts sent back one message before they disappeared. They found something buried beneath the black sand. Something old. Something that hums with the same energy as Kyle. Lily's breath caught. "You think it's connected to him?" "I do not know," the Queen admitted. "But if it calls to him, he must answer. And you must go with him, not because you carry a weapon, but because you carry wisdom. You see what others miss?" Lily looked at Kale, who stood quietly by the window watching fire moths dance in the twilight. He turned and met her gaze, his expression calm but curious. He was ready. The journey began at dawn. They traveled in a sky barge shaped like a crescent leaf, powered by solar winds and guided by living crystals that pulsed with direction. Lily brought only a satchel of seeds, a water flask, and her old datapad filled with earth maps and plant notes. Kale carried nothing but a small pendant his mother had given him, a shard of the original seed pod from which he was born. As they crossed over the emerald forests and the crystal deserts, Lily watched Kale closely. He seemed different, quieter, more focused, as if something deep inside him was stirring. "Do you feel it?" he asked her on the 3rd day as the barge skimmed over the edge of the ash wastes. "Feel what?" Lily asked. "A pull," he said, placing a hand over his chest, like a root reaching down into dark soil. "It's not fear, it's memory." Lily said nothing, but her stomach tightened. Memory meant history, and history in places like this was often written in pain. They landed at the edge of the wastes, where the ground was black and cracked, and the air tasted of burnt metal. Nothing grew here. No birds sang. Even the wind moved slowly as if grieving. They walked for hours following the faint hum that only Kale could hear. Lily kept her eyes on the ground, watching for signs. Tracks, disturbed sand, anything. But the wastes gave nothing away. Then, just as the second moon rose, they found it. A crater, wide and deep, ringed with broken pillars of obsidian. At its center stood a structure, part ruin, part machine, covered in vines of black crystal that pulsed with a slow red light. It looked ancient, older than the palace, older than the Queen's bloodline. Kale stepped forward without hesitation. "Wait," Lily said, grabbing his arm. "We don't know what's inside." "I do," he whispered. "It's calling me home." Before she could stop him, he walked into the ruin. Lily followed, heart pounding. Inside, the air was thick and warm. The walls were covered in carvings, scenes of Varelians with wings of light, cities floating among stars, and then war. Great ships falling from the sky, oceans boiling, a darkness spreading like ink. In the center of the chamber stood a pedestal, and on it rested a second seed pod, identical to the one Kale came from, but cracked open, empty, as Kale approached. The pod began to glow. A voice filled the room, not spoken, but felt like a thought shared between minds. "You have returned, Little light, Kale froze. Who are you? I am what remains, the voice replied. The last guardian of the first generation. We were not born of peace, child. We were born of survival. When the great silence came, the war that nearly ended us, we sealed our children in seed pods and sent them into the stars, hoping one would find a world kind enough to raise them. Lily's breath caught. So Kale wasn't just a prince. He was part of something much older. Why show yourself now? Kale asked. Because the silence is returning, the voice said. The ones who vanished, they found this place. And they woke something else. Something that feeds on fear. As if on cue, shadows moved at the edge of the chamber. Figures emerged from the walls. Not Varelians, but twisted versions of them, their skin dull, their eyes hollow, their movements jerky and sharp. They carried no weapons, but their very presence made the air cold. The hollowed, the voice whispered. Varelians who lost their light. They seek to drain yours. Kale stepped back, his glow flickering red with fear. Don't be afraid, Lily said, stepping in front of him. Remember what I taught you. She reached into her satchel and pulled out a handful of earth seeds. Sunflower, clover, wild rye. She scattered them on the ground. Life answers life, she said softly. At first nothing happened. The hollowed crept closer, their fingers outstretched. Then a tiny green shoot pushed through the black sand. Then another, and another. The chamber floor began to bloom. Vines wrapped around the hollowed, not to trap them but to hold them gently. Flowers opened, releasing a soft golden pollen that shimmered in the air. Where the pollen touched the hollowed, their skin brightened, their eyes softened. One by one, they stopped moving. They stood still, then knelt as if remembering who they once were. Kale stared in awe. You did that? No, Lily said, we did. You gave them light. I gave them soil. Together we gave them hope. The voice in the chamber grew warm. You are more than protector. You are bridge. Between worlds. Between past and future. As the last hollowed returned to stillness, the seed pod on the pedestal crumbled to dust. The ruins began to sink into the ground as if their purpose was fulfilled. Lily and Kale walked back to the sky barge in silence. The waste no longer felt dead. Tiny green shoots dotted the black sand, reaching for the moonlight. When they returned to the palace, Queen Zira waited on the steps, her face lined with worry. But when she saw Kale, calmer, stronger, his glow steady and gold, she smiled. You found what you needed, she said. We did, Kale replied, and we brought it back. From that day on, Lily was no longer just the prince's protector. She became the empire's gardener of memory, planting seeds not just in soil but in hearts. She taught young Varelians that strength wasn't only in battle, but in patience, in care, in the quiet act of helping something grow. And Kale, now understanding his true origin, used his power not to command but to heal. He walked the outer colonies not with soldiers but with botanists and teachers. He carried Lily's seeds in his pocket and sang her lullabies to frightened children. One evening, as they sat in the royal garden watching fire moths rise like tiny stars, Kale turned to Lily. Do you ever miss Earth? He asked. Lily looked at the twin suns setting over the crystal towers, at the vines blooming with both Varelian blossoms and earth daisies, at the boy who had chosen her all those years ago. I'm home, she said. And for the first time, the words felt completely true. The alien queen's child chose me for protection. The entire palace fell silent in the heart of the Varelian Empire, where towers of living crystal rose toward twin suns and rivers of liquid light flowed through gardens of singing blossoms. A human woman named Lily stood alone in the grand hall. She was not a soldier, not a diplomat, not even a high-ranking scientist. She was a botanist from Earth, brought to this world only to study alien plants. Yet here she was, barefoot on warm stone, surrounded by thousands of tall, silver-skinned Varelians whose golden eyes watched her with disbelief and suspicion. Lily had never wanted attention. Back on Earth, she spent her days in greenhouses, fingers deep in soil, listening to the quiet rhythm of growing things. She liked silence. She liked peace. But peace had vanished the moment the royal summons arrived. 2 silent guards with faces like polished stone had escorted her from the eastern greenhouse, where she'd been tending to a rare moonpetal vine, and led her through winding corridors that pulsed with soft blue light. She didn't ask questions. She simply followed, heart pounding but hands steady. Now, standing before the throne of Queen Zira, Lily felt the weight of every gaze. The queen sat tall and still, her crown woven from stardust and ancient roots, her expression unreadable. Beside her floated a small, glowing orb, Prince Kale, the heir to the Varelian throne. He was not a child in the human sense. He had emerged during the last eclipse from a sacred seed pod, a being of pure energy wrapped in translucent skin, his tiny form shimmering with soft light. For weeks, the court had searched for a protector, a guardian chosen by the prince himself. Only one the prince accepted could earn the title. Many had tried. Generals with armor forged from comet shards, mystics who spoke to the void between stars, elders who remembered the birth of their twin sons. Each one knelt, offered loyalty, wisdom, or strength. None were chosen. Then came Lily. Queen Zira raised one slender hand. The hall fell utterly silent. Even the air seemed to stop moving. "Approach," the queen said, her voice low and deep like distant thunder wrapped in silk. Lily walked forward. Her bare feet made no sound on the living stone. She stopped a few paces from the throne and bowed slightly, not in submission but in respect. "The prince must choose," the queen said. "You will offer him nothing but your presence." Lily nodded. She stepped closer. The orb pulsed gently, casting ripples of gold and blue across her face. She did not speak. She did not reach out. She simply stood, still as a rooted tree, breathing slowly, letting her calm fill the space between them. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then, the orb moved. A gasp swept through the hall. Prince Kale drifted forward on his own, something he had never done before. He circled Lily slowly, his glow brightening with each pass. Then, with a soft chime like a bell ringing in a faraway valley, he settled into the crook of her arm. Curling against her chest like a child seeking warmth, the entire palace fell silent. Not a whisper, not a breath. Even the wind outside seemed to pause. Queen Zira rose from her throne, her golden eyes wide with awe. "It is done," she whispered. "The prince has chosen." From that moment, Lily's life changed. She was given chambers near the royal nursery, woven from moonwillow branches and lined with soft moss that glowed faintly at night. Her robes were spun from dream silk, cool to the touch and shifting colors with her mood. But more than comfort, she was given duty. Prince Kale was powerful. His emotions could bend gravity. His cries could shatter glass. His laughter made flowers bloom instantly. He needed calm. He needed kindness. He needed someone who understood life not through force but through care. And Lily, with her gentle hands and quiet heart, was that someone. Days turned into weeks. Lily learned to read Kale's moods by the color of his glow. Blue for curiosity, red for fear, gold for joy. She sang him earth lullabies, the kind her grandmother used to hum under summer stars. She showed him pictures of forests, oceans, and snow-capped mountains stored in her small data pad. He would ripple with wonder, his tiny form mimicking falling leaves or leaping dolphins. But not everyone accepted the prince's choice. General Vorak, a warlord with scars across his chest and a voice like grinding stone, believed a human was unfit to guard the future of Virelia. "She carries no weapon," he declared in the council chamber. "She knows nothing of our history, our enemies, or our ways. She is soft, weak." Queen Zira's reply was calm but firm. The prince chose her not for her strength in battle, but for her strength in spirit. "Do you question his wisdom?" Vorak bowed, but his eyes burned with doubt. That doubt soon turned to action. One night, as Lily rocked Kale to sleep beneath a sky streaked with twin moons, alarms blared through the palace. Red light flooded the corridors. Intruders, rogue Varelians from the outer colonies, had breached the eastern gate. They sought to steal the prince, believing his power could be used to overthrow the queen and ignite a new age of war. Lily's heart raced, but she did not panic. She wrapped Kale in a cloak of shadow weave, a fabric that dulled his glow, and slipped into the service tunnels beneath the palace. She remembered every path from her botany tours, every hidden door behind waterfalls of liquid light. But Vorak found her. He stood at the end of a narrow passage, his armor gleaming, a blade of black crystal in his hand. "Give me the child," he said. "I will keep him safe from those rebels. You cannot protect him." Lily held Kale closer. "He chose me," she said, her voice steady. "And I won't let anyone take him, not even you." Vorak stepped forward. "You are one human against a warrior of Virelia. This is not bravery. It is foolishness." Lily did not move. Instead, she began to hum, an old earth tune, soft and slow. Kale, sensing her calm, pulsed gently in her arms. Then something strange happened. The walls around them began to shimmer. Vines crept from cracks in the stone, blooming with white flowers that glowed like stars. The air thickened with warmth and scent. Vorak froze. "You think protection is only about swords and shields?" Lily said quietly. "But life protects itself in many ways. Look around you." The tunnel was now alive, wrapped in blossoms that hummed with the same frequency as Kyle's energy. The prince was not just reacting to Lily. He was amplifying her presence, turning her calm into a shield of living light. Vorak lowered his blade. For the first time, he saw not a weak human, but a guardian whose power came not from force, but from harmony, perhaps, he murmured. The prince knew what he was doing. The rebels were captured by palace guards soon after. Peace returned to Varelia. But the story of the human protector spread across the stars. Other worlds sent envoys not to study weapons or technology, but to learn about the woman who calmed a prince with a song and turned fear into flowers. Queen Zyra later named Lily Keeper of the First Light, a title never before given to an outsider. And though Lily never sought glory, she accepted it, not for herself but for Kyle, who now slept peacefully each night, safe in the arms of the one who loved him without condition. Years later, when Kale grew into a young prince with eyes full of galaxies and a laugh that made trees dance, he would often be found in the royal gardens, kneeling beside Lily as she taught him how to plant seeds. "Why do you care so much about small things?" he once asked, watching a sprout push through the soil. "Because," Lily replied, brushing dirt from her hands, "small things grow into something greater, just like you." And in that moment, under the twin suns of Varelia, the human and the alien heir sat together, not as protector and prince, but as family. The palace no longer fell silent when Lily walked its halls. Instead it sang. The peace that followed the return from the ash wastes did not last. Though the hallowed had been calmed and the ancient ruin had vanished into the earth, something deeper had been stirred. Across the Varelian Empire, reports trickled in, not of violence but of silence. Entire villages stopped singing their morning hymns. Children no longer played in the light rivers. Even the living towers dimmed, their usual blue pulse fading to a dull gray. It was as if the soul of the world was slowly falling asleep. Lily noticed it first in the gardens. The singing blossoms fell quiet. The moon petal vines curled inward, refusing to open even under full starlight. She tried everything, new soil blends, earth nutrients, even humming old lullabies, but nothing brought back their song. Kale felt it too. His glow, once steady and warm, now flickered without reason, especially at night when he thought no one was watching. Queen Zyra called a council. The great hall, once filled with light and debate, now echoed with hushed voices and worried glances. General Vorak stood among them. Older now, his armor less polished, his stance less rigid. He no longer doubted Lily. Instead, he watched her with quiet respect. "This is not rebellion," Vorak said. "This is exhaustion. The Empire has given too much for too long. The light is fading because no one is feeding it." Lily stepped forward. "It's not just the people," she said. "It's the land. The plants, the rivers, the crystals, they're all connected. If the heart of Varelia is tired, everything suffers." The queen turned to her. "What do you suggest?" Lily took a deep breath. "We need to listen. Not with our ears, but with our hands, our roots, our presence." The old ways focused on power and expansion. But life doesn't grow from force. It grows from care. Kale nodded. "I feel it too, like a whisper beneath the silence. Something is waiting for us to remember." So they made a plan. Not a military campaign, not a royal decree, but a journey of return. Lily and Kale would travel to the 7 sacred groves, the oldest living places in the Empire, places where the first Varelians had planted their roots and sung the world into being. At each grove they would not command, not fix, but simply be. They would sit, listen, and offer what they could. A seed, a song, a moment of stillness. Their first stop was the grove of whispering roots, deep in the Emerald Highlands. The path was overgrown, the bridge of light vines broken. When they arrived, the grove was silent. The great root tree at its center, once said to hold the memories of 1,000 generations, stood bare and gray. Lily knelt and placed her palms on the soil. It was cold, dry, lifeless. Kale sat beside her, closing his eyes. "It's not gone," he whispered, "just sleeping." For 3 days they stayed. Lily watered the earth with dew collected from morning clouds. She planted earth clover and wild thyme around the base of the root tree, small green things that asked for little, but gave back oxygen and softness. Kale sang, not loudly but softly, the same lullaby Lily had taught him years ago. His voice carried no command, only comfort. On the fourth morning, a single leaf unfurled at the tip of the highest branch, pale green trembling in the breeze. Then another, and another. By noon, the tree hummed, a low, gentle sound, like a heartbeat returning. As they left, the grove behind them rustled with new life, and the wind carried its song to the next valley. Their second stop was the Crystal Marsh, where liquid light pooled between towers of quartz. Once, this place had been a nursery for young Varelians learning to shape light with their thoughts. Now the pools were still, the crystals dull. Lily waded into the shallow water, her robe soaking in scattered seeds of water lilies from earth. Kale knelt at the edge and placed his hands on the largest crystal. He did not push energy into it. He simply waited. Hours passed. Then deep within the crystal, a spark flickered. Then another. Soon the whole marsh glowed with soft pulses of blue and gold, and the liquid light began to ripple again, forming shapes. Birds, fish, spirals, just as it had in ancient times. Word of their journey spread, not through announcements but through feeling. Villages they passed through began to sing again. Children left offerings of petals at crossroads. Elders spoke of the human who walked with the prince not as a ruler, but as a gardener of souls. But not all welcomed the change. In the shadowed spire of the outer rim, a faction known as the Keepers of Pure Light watched with growing anger. They believed Varelia's strength came from purity. No mixing with outsiders, no soft earth ways, no songs from a blue-green world. Their leader, a former scholar named Nihilus, had once been close to the queen, but had grown bitter after his own child failed to bond with the royal line. "She is poisoning our bloodline with foreign soil," Malus told his followers. "The prince forgets who he is because she fills his mind with weeds and water." They began to act. Not with armies, but with silence. They cut the light vines connecting distant provinces. They poisoned wells with ash from dead stars. They whispered that Lily was not a healer, but a thief, stealing Varelia's essence to feed her own dying world. Lily heard the rumors but did not respond. She knew words would not reach those who had already closed their hearts. Only presence could. Their fifth grove was the hardest, the Sky Root Canyon, where the oldest trees grew upside down from the ceiling of a vast chasm, their roots dangling like silver hair into the mist below. This grove was sacred to the keepers. They had guarded it for centuries, allowing no outsiders. When Lily and Kale arrived, Malus stood at the canyon's edge, flanked by 20 silent followers. "You will not enter," he said, his voice sharp as broken glass. Kale stepped forward. "I am the prince. This grove belongs to all Varelians." "Not while she is with you," Malus spat, pointing at Lily. "She carries the scent of death. Earth is a dying world. Why should we let its rot touch our roots?" Lily did not argue. She simply sat down on a stone at the canyon's rim, took out a small pouch, and began to braid strands of moonpetal vine and earthgrass into a simple cord. She worked slowly, her fingers moving with calm rhythm. Kale sat beside her and closed his eyes. Malus waited for anger, for demands, for force. None came, only stillness. Hours passed. The sun moved. The wind shifted. And then from deep in the canyon a sound rose. A single note, pure and clear, sung by the oldest sky root. It had not sung in 50 cycles. Malus froze. His followers exchanged glances. One young Varelian stepped forward, tears in her eyes. "It remembers," she whispered. Lily stood, holding out the cord she had made. "This is not Earth," she said gently. "This is not Varelia. This is both, and both are alive." Malus stared at the cord, then at the canyon, then at Kale, whose glow now pulsed in time with the skyroot's song. Something in his chest cracked, not with rage but with grief. He had been so afraid of losing his world that he had forgotten how to love it. He took the cord and wept. From that day, the keepers of pure light began to change, not all at once but slowly, like roots finding new soil. They joined Lily and Kale on the final legs of their journey, carrying water, planting seeds, learning to listen. By the time they reached the seventh grove, the heart root, a massive tree said to be the first thing that ever grew on Varelia, the Empire was already waking. Light returned to the towers. Songs filled the air. Children laughed in the rivers. At the heart root, Lily placed her last earth seed, a single oak acorn, into the soil. Kale placed his hand over it and whispered, "Grow with us." The ground trembled softly, not with power but with welcome. When they returned to the palace, Queen Zira stood on the steps, but she was not alone. Thousands of Varelians filled the courtyard, farmers, warriors, mystics, children, all holding sprigs of green, all glowing with quiet light. No one spoke. They simply bowed, not to the prince, not to the queen, but to Lily. She shook her head, tears in her eyes. "I did nothing," she whispered. "You remembered for us," Zira said. "And in remembering, you helped us heal." Years later, when Kale took the throne, his first decree was not about law or war or expansion. It was simple. Every home, every school, every ship would carry a garden, part Varelian, part Earth. And every child would learn to plant, to wait, to care. Lily never returned to Earth. She did not need to. She had found her place not in soil or stars, but in the space between, where life, in all its forms, learns to grow together. And in the heart of the Empire, the heartroot tree now bore leaves of silver and green, and its song could be heard across the stars. The galaxy had grown quieter since the healing of Virelia, but silence in space is never empty. It is only waiting. Lily felt it first in her dreams. She would wake in the middle of the night drenched in cold sweat, hearing a sound that did not belong to any wind, any song, any living thing. It was a hum, low and sharp like metal grinding against bone. Kyle felt it too. His glow would dim without warning, and he would stare into the stars as if searching for a shadow that moved faster than light. Queen Zira, now older and wiser, called them to the observatory spire one evening. The great sky glass showed not just stars but ripples, disturbances in the fabric of space near the edge of known territory. Ships had vanished there too, not Varelian this time, but from neutral systems, trade convoys, even a small human research vessel from the outer rim. "They are not being destroyed," Zira said, her voice tight. "They are being emptied," Lily frowned. "Emptied. No bodies. No wreckage. Just silence. And a faint echo of that same hum you both have felt." Kale stepped forward. "It is not Varelian. It is not human. It is something else. Something that feeds on connection." Lily's blood ran cold. She remembered the hollowed in the ash wastes, beings who lost their light. But this was different. This was not loss. This was theft. They decided to go. Not with an armada, not with weapons, but with a single ship. A living vessel grown from heartroot wood and woven with dream silk sails. It carried no cannons, only gardens, song crystals, and a small pot of earth soil sealed in glass. Lily packed her satchel with seeds that had never left Varelia. Oak, sunflower, clover, and Kale brought the last shard of his birth pod, now warm to the touch. Their destination was the void rim, a stretch of space where stars grew sparse and the dark between them felt thick, almost solid. As they crossed the threshold, the ship's light dimmed. The vines along its hull curled inward. Even the air inside grew still. Then they saw it. A structure, not built but grown, twisted, black, pulsing with veins of sickly green light. It floated in the center of a dead star's remains, its shape shifting like smoke. Around it drifted ghost ships, empty hulls with open hatches, their interiors dark and dry. "It is a hive," Kale whispered, "but not of bodies, of echoes." As they drew closer, the hum grew louder. It pressed against their skulls, not painful but invasive, like someone whispering secrets they were never meant to hear. Lily gripped the edge of the console, her knuckles white. "It is trying to reach inside us," she said, "to find what makes us feel and take it." Kyle closed his eyes. "Then we do not hide. We offer." Before Lily could protest, he opened the ship's main hatch, not to send out soldiers, but to let their presence flow outward. His light, her calm, the soft hum of the gardens, the quiet pulse of living things. The black hive shuddered. From its surface, shapes emerged, not creatures but fragments. A hand made of shadow, a face with no eyes, a voice that spoke in broken words from 100 lost languages. They reached toward the ship not to attack but to grasp. "They are not enemies," Kale said, his voice filled with sorrow. "They are the forgotten, beings from worlds that fell silent long ago. Something found them in their loneliness and turned their grief into hunger." Lily understood. This was not a war. It was a wound. She walked to the garden chamber and gathered armfuls of blooming vines, sunflowers with golden faces and moss that glowed with stored starlight. She carried them to the open hatch and began to weave them into a floating wreath, not as a weapon but as an offering. "We see you," she said aloud, her voice steady. "You do not have to take. You can receive." She pushed the wreath into the void. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then one of the shadow figures drifted toward it. It touched a sunflower petal and flinched. But it did not pull away. Slowly, gently, it wrapped its form around the wreath. The green veins in the hive flickered, then softened to blue. More figures came. Not all, but some. They gathered around the wreath, their forms growing less sharp, less desperate. The hum changed. It was no longer a grind, but a sigh. Kale stepped to the hatch and held out his hand. From his palm, a single drop of light fell. Pure, warm, and golden. It floated toward the hive. The hive did not consume it. It absorbed it. And in that moment, a memory bloomed in the minds of Lily and Kale. Not their own, but shared. A world of crystal oceans. A people who sang to their children in frequencies that shaped time. Then silence. A darkness that came not with fire, but with forgetting. They had tried to hold on, but without connection, without song, they faded. Until only echoes remained. Drifting. Hungry. Afraid. They were never monsters, Lily whispered. They were just alone, Kale nodded. And loneliness is the deepest kind of hunger. He turned to Lily. We cannot destroy them. But maybe we can remember them. Together they opened the ship's core chamber, the heart of the vessel, where the first seed of Virelia and the first acorn of Earth grew side by side in shared soil. They invited the echoes in. Not all came. Some vanished into the dark, too far gone. But dozens entered the ship, drawn by the warmth. The green, the soft hum of life that asked for nothing in return. Inside, they did not speak. They simply rested. Some curled around the roots of the oak sapling. Others hovered near the singing blossoms. One small echo shaped like a child sat beside Lily and watched her hands as she watered the soil. Days passed. The hive outside shrank, its black form dissolving into stardust. The ghost ships drifted away, empty but no longer haunted. When Lily and Kale returned to Virelia, they did not bring trophies or warnings. They brought guests. The court was uneasy at first, shadows in the palace halls, forms that flickered at the edge of sight. But Lily built them a sanctuary, a quiet grove beneath the palace lined with earth moss and Virelian moon vines, where light was soft and songs were slow. Over time, the echoes changed. They did not become solid, but they grew peaceful. They began to hum along with the gardens. Sometimes in the stillness of night, a new song would rise, one made of many voices, old and lost, now remembered. Queen Zyra declared a new tradition. Once every cycle, the Empire would hold the Night of Echoes, a time when all Virelians would sit in silence and speak the names of worlds that had fallen quiet. Not to mourn, but to say, "You are not forgotten." Lily taught the children how to plant memory seeds, flowers that bloomed only when someone spoke a lost name. Kale wove their stories into the light rivers, so their songs would flow through the land. Years later, a human ship arrived at Virelia's edge, not a warship, not a colony vessel, but a small science craft. Its captain, a woman named Claire, stepped onto the landing platform with wide eyes. She had come seeking answers about the vanished research vessel. Instead, she found a world where humans and aliens walked together, where gardens grew in starlight and where silence was not empty, but full of care. Lily met her at the gate. They spoke for hours of Earth, of change, of hope. Claire wept when she saw the memory grove, where a single sunflower bloomed in honor of her lost crew. "You saved them," Claire said. "Not their bodies, but their meaning." "No," Lily replied. "We just refused to let them disappear." As Claire's ship departed, it carried not just data, but seeds, Virelian and Earth, wrapped in cords of braided vine and grass. A gift. A promise. Back in the palace gardens, Lily sat with Kale, now a wise and gentle ruler, his glow steady and deep. The twin suns set, painting the sky in gold and violet. "Do you think there are more out there?" Kale asked. "More echoes. More silent worlds." Lily looked up at the stars. "I do, and we will find them. Not with force, not with fear, but with soil and song and the simple act of saying you matter." And in that moment the entire palace did not fall silent. It listened. Time moved like a slow river on Virelia now, steady and deep, carrying the Empire through cycles of bloom and rest. Lily's hair had turned silver at the temples, and the lines on her face spoke of years spent in sun and wind. in quiet worry and quiet joy. Kale, no longer a prince but the reigning sovereign, ruled not from a throne of starlight, but from the Heartroot Grove, where decisions were made with roots in the soil and eyes on the stars. The memory grove had grown into a forest of remembrance, its trees bearing leaves that shimmered with the names of lost worlds, and its flowers blooming only when someone spoke a forgotten story aloud. But peace, even the deepest kind, cannot shield against the passage of time. Lily began to feel it in her bones. The walks through the gardens took longer. Her hands, once quick and sure with seeds and soil, now trembled slightly in the cold mornings. She hid it well, smiling through the fatigue, but Kyle saw. He always saw. One evening, as they sat beneath the twin moons watching fire moths rise from the clover fields, Kale spoke softly. "You are tired." Lily did not deny it. "All things grow tired, Kale. Even stars burn out. But you are not a star," he said. "You are the soil that holds them." She smiled, but her eyes were sad. "Soil returns to the earth. That is not an end. It is a gift." Kale looked away, his glow dimming to a soft blue. He had faced hives of hunger, silence of dying worlds, and the weight of an empire. But the thought of losing Lily made him feel like the small, floating orb he once was, drifting without direction. Queen Zira, now retired to the high gardens, sent for Lily the next day. The old queen sat among moon-petal vines, her silver skin etched with age, her golden eyes still sharp. "You have given us more than we ever deserved," Zira said, her voice like dry leaves in a gentle wind. "But you do not owe us your last breath." Lily shook her head. "I do not see it as owing. I see it as belonging." "Then belong fully," Zira said. "Let us care for you as you have cared for us." So they made a place for her, not in the palace but in the oldest part of the Heartroot Grove, where the soil was richest and the air hummed with ancient songs. A small house grew from living wood, its walls lined with earth moss and its roof open to the stars. Vines of sunflower and moon blossom curled around the doorway, and a stream of liquid light flowed just outside, singing as it passed. Lily moved in quietly. She still tended her gardens, though now she sat on a woven stool while she worked. Children from across the empire came to sit with her, not to be taught but to listen. She told them stories of Earth, of snow falling on silent forests, of oceans that roared and calmed, of cities that once forgot the sky but were learning to look up again. Kyle visited every day. Sometimes they spoke. Sometimes they sat in silence, hands resting on the warm soil, watching seeds push through the dark. Then came the day the stars blinked. Not all of them. Just one, a distant red giant near the edge of mapped space. It did not explode. It did not fade. It simply stopped shining for 3 full heartbeats. Then it returned as if nothing had happened. But Lily and Kale felt it. A tremor in the fabric of existence. A breath held too long. That night, the memory forest went still. Not silent, still. The leaves did not rustle. The flowers did not glow. Even the fire moths clung to the stems, wings closed. Kale ran to Lily's house. She was already awake, sitting by the open roof, her eyes on the sky. "It is beginning again," she said. "What is?" "The unraveling," she whispered. "Not from outside. From within." "The universe is forgetting itself." Kale knelt beside her. "How do we stop it?" "We do not stop it," she said. "We remind it." She stood slower than before and walked to her satchel, the same one she had carried since her first day in the palace. Inside were seeds, yes, but also small data chips from Earth. Varelian song crystals, a lock of hair from her mother, a dried daisy pressed between glass, all fragments of memory, all proof that something lived, loved, and mattered. "We send them out," she said. "Not ships, not armies, just these little pieces of us cast into the dark, so that if the light fades, someone somewhere will find them and remember how to grow." Kale understood. He called the shipwrights not to build war vessels, but to craft seed pods, tiny living capsules woven from heartroot fibers and lined with dream silk. Each one would carry a story, a song, a seed, a name. The whole empire joined. Children wrote poems on leaves. Elders recorded lullabies in crystal. Farmers donated their rarest seeds. Even the echoes from the void rim contributed, soft hums, half-remembered melodies from worlds long gone. Lily helped pack the first pod herself. Her hands shook, but her heart was steady. She placed inside a single acorn, a sprig of moon petal. A recording of her voice saying "You are not alone," and a small stone from Earth, worn smooth by ocean waves. As the pods were loaded onto silent sky barges designed to drift, not fly, Lily grew weaker. She spent her days in the heartroot grove, lying on a bed of moss, her fingers tangled in the roots of the great tree. Kale sat with her always. On the last day, the twin suns rose together in perfect alignment, a rare event called the joining light. The entire empire gathered in the grove, not to mourn but to witness. Lily's breath was shallow, her skin cool, but her eyes were clear, fixed on the sky. "They are ready," Kyle said softly, holding her hand. She nodded. "Send them." As the first barge lifted into the sky, trailing vines and light, Lily smiled. "Tell them I was happy." Her breath slowed, then stopped. The heartroot tree shuddered. A single leaf fell, silver on one side, green on the other, and landed on her chest. The grove did not wail. It sang. A low, deep song that rose from the soil, through the roots, into the branches, and out into the stars. Every living thing on Varelia joined. Plants, crystals, rivers, people, even the echoes. It was not a song of grief, but of gratitude. Kale closed his eyes and let his light pour into the earth, feeding the roots that held her. In the days that followed, the seed pods drifted farther, carried by solar winds and gentle currents of space. Some would be found in a year, some in 1,000. Some might never be found at all. But that did not matter. The act of sending was the promise. The act of remembering was the resistance. Back on Varelia, a new tradition began. Every joining light, the people would gather in the heartroot grove and plant a seed. One from Earth, one from Varelia, and say Lily's name. Not as a ghost, but as a root. Kale ruled with her lessons in his heart. He built no monuments of stone, but forests of memory. He sent no armies to conquer, but gardeners to heal. And when young ones asked about the human who once walked among them, he would take them to the grove and show them the tree that bore silver-green leaves. "She is not gone," he would say. "She is growing." And far out in the void, a tiny pod tumbled through the dark. Inside, an acorn slept. Beside it, a moon-petal vine curled around a data chip that whispered in a soft human voice, "You are not alone." The universe listened.